you'll be using your left wrist and your right wrist, and you will be applying a 10 times And the reason I was able to strike that ball so well, solid, with a good flight and good distance, is because my transition was good. For this video, I'm going to show you 3 really common faults I see all too often in the transition, and more importantly, what you need to do in order to fix them. The first fault is really just the direction that you move as you start down. Let's say we've made our backswing, and I want to use as a reference my lead shoulder, and we can use the sort of logo on my hat. Now what you'll see from great players is that that lead shoulder and that logo on that hat actually move slightly towards the target, which is normal, but they also move down. So they move forward and down. You can see Tiger doing that beautifully. I mean, if there's a golfer you want to copy, probably going to be him. There's a really important reason why we do that, because if you think about my setup here, if I take an address just inside this ball, if I move my club towards the target, it's just going to come up away from the ground. So my setup and the way I sort of position my body around the ball doesn't put me in a position where I'm able to hit ball then turf. And if you look at that shot I hit at the start of the video, it was ball and then turf. There was a divot. We've got that sort of downward attack angle that so many of the great players do. With the irons, we always have to hit the ball and then the club goes descending into the ground. We can't do that from our setup position. So what we have to do is you have to make a really nice backswing, and then we have to make this downward and forward movement. The key movement here is lead shoulder. That's the one I want you to focus on, moving towards the ground. So what's the fault that I see? Well, I see it popping up far too early. So it would be really common to see top, and then this shoulder starts to move upwards really quickly. And you can see what that does to my upper body. It sort of starts to push it backwards, and it starts to force my weight onto this trail leg. This is the simple drill I want you to do. Take a towel or something very similar, and you're just going to place that directly under where your lead foot would be. It feels a little bit strange because that foot's a little higher, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to not think about shifting weight, because shifting weight would suggest I'm moving laterally. I want you to think about putting pressure under that lead foot. So think about this as a visual and analogy. Let's say, I'm going to use easy numbers here. Let's say I weighed 100 kilograms. If I took a setup and I was perfectly balanced, this would be 50, this would be 50. Think about you standing on some bathroom scales. Okay, 50 kilograms, 50 kilograms. If I move my weight onto this leg, that would go to 100 kilograms. In the transition, I want you to try and get that scale to read as high as you can, higher than 100 kilograms, 120, 130, 140. So what would that look like? Well, it would look like this. I'm really trying to push as hard as I can into that lead foot. I'm trying to imagine that bathroom scale is going to shoot up over 100 kilograms. That is pressure. And that's a really simple way for you to feel what pressure is like. Second fault, to do with the club head and to do with your hands and the direction that they travel. It would make a lot of sense if from the top of the backswing, the hands, the club shaft as well, and the club head took a direct line to the golf ball. That would make a lot of sense. It's wrong, I will explain why in a moment, but that would make a lot of sense. So what happens all too often is that a golfer will get to the top of the golf swing in a beautiful position, but with the hands and the arms, they try to move the golf club directly to the golf ball, sort of in this fashion here. And if I sort of, let's say, close my eyes, where do I feel the hands and the club traveling? Well, I feel it traveling down towards the golf ball. That makes perfect sense, surely. This is why that's so detrimental to your game. What is the body doing? Well, the body turns back, turns forward. So if I was to put my hands on the club at any position, let's say here, and I simply added rotation towards the target, what's going to happen to the hands, the club shaft and the club head? They are going to move outwards over this way. So this is what happens in so many golf swings. From the transition, there is an effort to move the hands and the club directly towards the ball. But we've just said there's also rotation, which sends the club out. So you're trying to move the club towards the ball, the body turns, and we get way, way out here. Club head way too far outside the hand. And then from there, we're left with that swipey across thing that we see. It feels horrible, it feels cramped, and we don't get the ball flight that we want. So take a golf ball, and you're going to place it outside of your heels. Now what I'm going to do from the top is I'm actually going to try and push the hands down towards that golf ball. Look what's happening to my right arm as I do that. The flex that it has at the top starts to reduce. My right arm isn't straightening and I'm not releasing my wrists, but my right arm is starting to lengthen a little bit. Now when I do that on its own, yeah, that looks like the club gets a little bit too far down behind me, but I haven't added this rotation. When I add the rotation, guess what? Now we're in our perfect delivery position. This thing, club face. If we're talking transition and we're talking about the most common faults I see, club face has to be on this list. You know, we take an address and we set up, and with any luck we kind of point the club down towards our target. But in the golf swing, the club doesn't stay there. It just can't stay there. It has to change. So to make this a little bit easier to explain, we're going to take our set and we're just going to stand up dead straight. So as you can see here, when I stand up dead straight, that pointer is pretty much down towards my target. Okay, it's certainly horizontal. But as I make a backswing, my natural backswing means that as I rotate my forearms, that pointer starts to go up towards the sky. That club face is rotated through 90 degrees. What the great players do in transition is, as they transition from backswing to downswing, they begin the process of twisting that back towards horizontal, and you can see now that it points probably back to you as the camera. Now they don't do it this much, I've over exaggerated that, but they start that process. This therefore is a super common fault. Normal club face, rotates, and then as a golfer snatches from the top or yanks on the golf club, it opens even more. So it's gone from 90 degree open to suddenly something like 120, 130 degrees open. Then we start to release it early, we start to back up, we start to do all of those horrible things that you're going to see in your golf swing. So try this little exercise. Stand up in front of you, points out horizontally, it's going to point pretty much vertically, but as you transition, just start to twist that club back to where it came from. And you can see that I'm doing that there. What you might find quite naturally is that your movement is one of the face opening. If the face is opening, you are in a whole world of trouble. So you need to get that face working closed earlier. Now what I'd love you to do in that little exercise, you just think to yourself, well, what am I doing to do that? The chances are you will be using your left wrist and your right wrist, and you will be applying a twist to the golf club. Great players apply a twist to the golf club. Poor players also apply a twist to the golf club, but it's very often the opposite way. If you could change that, you can unlock some great golf. So I'm going to take a setup, and those little ideas, those little feelings that I just created, I can have a go and see if I can create those in the swing. So I feel in transition that I'm making that movement that I just rehearsed. Once I've done a couple of those, I can just go ahead and let the ball get in the way. That's pretty much how you practice. You create a scenario where you're able to understand and feel the movement. I did that from here. Once I'd felt what that movement was and I'd attached my own feels to that movement, I put that more into a golf posture, and I tried to refine those feelings. Once I'd refound those feelings, I placed a golf ball, I searched for those feelings, and I got a result. That's the best way to practice. That's how you can get the most out of your practice.